Sarah Martinez had always been different from other kids in her neighborhood. While other children played with dolls or video games, she spent hours studying maps and reading military history books. Her father, a retired Marine sergeant, noticed her fascination early on. He would find her in his study at night, flashlight in hand, poring over tactical manuals that most adults found boring. "What are you reading now, kiddo?" he would ask, though he already knew the answer. Sarah would look up with bright eyes, explaining some complex military strategy she had just discovered. Her father would smile and ruffle her hair, proud but also worried. The world could be harsh on women who chose unconventional paths. By the time Sarah turned 16, she had made up her mind. She wanted to serve her country in the most elite way possible. She wanted to become a Navy SEAL. The problem was simple yet enormous: women were not allowed in SEAL teams. The military had strict policies about combat roles for women, and the SEALs were considered the ultimate combat unit. Sarah's high school guidance counselor, Mrs. Peterson, tried to redirect her ambitions. "Have you considered nursing? Or maybe intelligence work? Those are important military roles too." Sarah listened politely but remained firm in her decision. She would find a way, even if it meant waiting for the rules to change. After graduation, Sarah enlisted in the Navy. She excelled in every training program they put her through. Her instructors were impressed by her physical fitness, mental toughness, and leadership skills. She could outrun most of the men in her unit, outscore them in marksmanship, and solve tactical problems faster than anyone else. But every time she asked about SEAL training, she received the same answer: not available to women. Years passed. Sarah served with distinction in various Navy roles. She became an expert in underwater demolition, learned multiple languages, and trained in advanced combat techniques. Her service record was flawless. She received commendations and promotions. But her dream remained out of reach. During her 6th year of service, something changed. The military began opening more combat roles to women. Sarah watched hopefully as barriers fell in other branches and specialties. She applied for every new opportunity that became available, building an impressive resume of combat-related training and experience. One day, her commanding officer called her into his office. Captain Reynolds was a fair man who had watched Sarah's career with interest. "Martinez, I have news. The Navy is starting a pilot program. They're going to allow a select number of women to attempt SEAL training." Sarah's heart raced. This was the moment she had been waiting for. The application process was intense. Physical fitness tests, psychological evaluations, interviews with senior officers. Sarah prepared for months, pushing her body and mind to their limits. She knew she would get only one chance, and the standards would be impossibly high. The Navy wanted to ensure that any woman who entered the program would succeed, not just to prove it could be done, but to pave the way for others. When the acceptance letter arrived, Sarah stared at it for a full minute before opening it. Her hands shook as she read the words, "Congratulations. You have been selected for basic underwater demolition/SEAL training." She had done it. She was going to BUD/S, the most challenging military training program in the world. The training began in Coronado, California. From the first day, Sarah knew she was under a microscope. Media attention followed the program closely. Military officials watched every move. Her fellow trainees, all men, reacted differently to her presence. Some were supportive, others skeptical, and a few openly hostile. Hell Week was the ultimate test. 5 days of continuous training with minimal sleep, constant physical challenges, and intense mental pressure. Instructors pushed students beyond their breaking points, looking for those who would quit. The famous bell that trainees could ring to drop out of the program stood as a constant reminder that escape was possible. Sarah's body screamed in pain as she carried heavy logs with her team. Her muscles burned during endless swimming sessions in frigid water. Her mind fought against exhaustion as instructors yelled commands and created chaos. But she refused to give up. Every time the thought of quitting entered her mind, she remembered all the people who said women couldn't do this job. On the 4th night of Hell Week, disaster struck. During a night navigation exercise, Sarah's team got separated from the main group. They found themselves lost in difficult terrain with equipment failures and mounting fatigue. The situation became dangerous quickly. Radio communications were down, and hypothermia threatened the team as temperatures dropped. Sarah took charge of the situation. Using her navigation skills and natural leadership abilities, she guided her team through the darkness. She kept morale up with jokes and encouragement. When one teammate collapsed from exhaustion, she helped carry him for miles. Her quick thinking and refusal to abandon anyone likely saved lives that night. The instructors found Sarah's team at dawn, cold but alive and still together. The story of how she had led them through the crisis spread quickly through the training command. Even the toughest instructors began to view her differently. She had proven something important that night. She wasn't just trying to survive the training, she was excelling at it. Weeks passed with more challenges. Urban warfare training, weapons expertise, medical training, and countless other specialties. Sarah absorbed everything like a sponge. Her test scores were among the highest in her class. Her physical performance continued to improve. Most importantly, she earned the respect of her teammates. But not everyone was pleased with her progress. Some critics outside the military continued to argue that women had no place in elite combat units. They questioned whether standards had been lowered to ensure her success. They pointed to her smaller size compared to male SEALs, ignoring her superior performance in many areas. The criticism intensified when Sarah graduated from BUD/S with honors. She became the first woman to complete the program successfully, a historic achievement that made headlines around the world. Photos of her receiving her SEAL Trident pin appeared on magazine covers. News shows debated whether her graduation represented progress or a dangerous lowering of standards. Sarah tried to ignore the controversy. She had trained harder than almost anyone in her class. Her instructors confirmed that no standards had been changed. Her performance spoke for itself. But she knew that proving herself in training was only the beginning. The real test would come in actual operations. Her first assignment was to SEAL Team 7, based in Virginia Beach. The team commander, Lieutenant Commander Jackson, was a veteran with multiple combat deployments. He was known for his fairness but also his extremely high standards. He made it clear that Sarah would receive no special treatment because of her gender or the media attention surrounding her. The team members were professional but cautious. They had worked together for years, developing the trust and communication essential for dangerous missions. Adding a new member, especially one carrying so much attention and controversy, created natural tension. Sarah understood their concerns and focused on proving her value through hard work and competence. Training with the team was different from BUD/S. Here, the focus was on real-world skills and team coordination. Sarah learned advanced shooting techniques, practiced hostage rescue scenarios, and studied intelligence about potential targets around the world. She excelled in these areas, but she still felt like an outsider looking in. The breakthrough came during a training exercise in North Carolina. The team was practicing a complicated rescue mission involving multiple moving parts. During the exercise, everything went wrong. Equipment malfunctioned, communications broke down, and the hostages were moved to an unexpected location. The mission seemed doomed to failure. Sarah noticed something that others had missed. A small detail in the intelligence briefing that suddenly made sense given the changed circumstances. She quietly shared her observation with Lieutenant Commander Jackson. He listened, thought for a moment, then completely changed the mission plan based on her insight. The exercise concluded successfully, and Sarah's contribution was undeniable. After the exercise, the team gathered for their usual debrief. For the first time, Sarah felt like she was truly part of the group. The other SEALs asked for her opinions and included her in their discussions. She had proven that she belonged not just because she could meet the physical standards, but because she could think and contribute under pressure. Months passed with more training and preparation. Sarah continued to improve and integrate with the team. The media attention gradually faded as other news stories took priority. Inside the SEAL community, she was becoming known simply as a solid operator who happened to be a woman, rather than as a symbol or experiment. Then came the call that would change everything. Intelligence agencies had located a high-value target in a hostile region. A terrorist leader responsible for multiple attacks against American interests was hiding in a heavily defended compound. The mission would be extremely dangerous, requiring precision, stealth, and perfect execution. SEAL Team 7 was selected for the operation. Sarah felt a mixture of excitement and nervousness as she learned the details. This would be her first real combat mission as a SEAL. Everything she had trained for, everything she had sacrificed to achieve, would be put to the ultimate test. The target compound was located in a mountainous region where local militia groups provided security for terrorist organizations. Intelligence reports indicated at least 20 armed guards, sophisticated alarm systems, and multiple escape routes. The mission required the team to infiltrate the compound, capture or eliminate the target, and extract without alerting the broader militia network in the area. Sarah studied the mission plans obsessively. She memorized every detail of the compound layout, every guard rotation schedule, and every possible contingency. Her teammates noticed her dedication and began including her more deeply in the tactical planning process. Her fresh perspective and attention to detail added valuable insights to their strategy. The night before the mission, Lieutenant Commander Jackson addressed the team. "Tomorrow, we do what we've trained for. We go in fast, accomplish the mission, and come home together. Martinez, this is your first time downrange with us. Any concerns?" Sarah shook her head. She was ready. The helicopter ride to the insertion point was tense. Each team member checked and rechecked their equipment. Sarah ran through the mission timeline in her mind one final time. She thought about her father, who would be proud to see her finally serving at the level she had always dreamed of. She thought about all the critics who still believed women couldn't handle combat. But, mostly, she focused on the mission ahead. The insertion went perfectly. The team moved through the darkness with practiced precision, covering several miles of difficult terrain without detection. Sarah kept pace easily, her smaller size actually proving advantageous in some of the tight spaces they had to navigate. The compound appeared ahead of them exactly as described in the intelligence briefings. But, as they prepared to breach the perimeter, Sarah noticed something that made her blood run cold. The guard positions had changed from what their intelligence indicated. There were twice as many sentries as expected, and they were positioned to create a deadly crossfire for anyone approaching the main building. The mission plan was based on outdated information. Sarah quickly signaled to Lieutenant Commander Jackson, pointing out the problem. He studied the situation through his scope and realized she was right. The team was walking into a trap. They needed to abort or completely change their approach. Either option carried enormous risks. In that moment, Sarah made an observation that would save lives and ensure mission success. She had noticed a weakness in the new guard deployment that could be exploited, but it would require someone to take an extremely dangerous position to create a diversion. The entire team's survival might depend on one person's ability to execute a nearly impossible task. As Sarah prepared to share her plan with the team leader, she had no idea that within hours, her actions would prove definitively that she belonged among America's most elite warriors. The mission was about to become far more complicated than anyone had anticipated, and her quick thinking under pressure would make the difference between success and catastrophe. The compound ahead looked peaceful in the moonlight, but Sarah knew it was filled with deadly surprises. Her training had prepared her for this moment, but training could never fully simulate the weight of a real mission where lives hung in the balance. She checked her weapon one final time and prepared to show the world what a woman could accomplish as a Navy SEAL. Everything she had worked for, everything she had sacrificed, came down to the next few hours. Success would validate her presence in the teams and open doors for other women. Failure could cost lives and set back the cause of women in combat roles for years. The pressure was enormous, but Sarah had never backed down from a challenge in her life. She wasn't about to start now. The mission was just beginning, and she was ready for whatever came next. Her team was counting on her country was counting on her, and she would not let them down. The moment of truth had finally arrived, and Sarah Martinez was prepared to prove that she belonged among America's finest warriors. The changed guard positions created a deadly puzzle that required immediate solving. Sarah studied the compound through her night vision scope, counting sentries and tracking their movement patterns. The original intelligence had shown a fairly standard security setup, but what they faced now was a sophisticated defensive arrangement that suggested someone had warned the terrorists about possible American operations. Lieutenant Commander Jackson crouched beside her, his jaw tight with concentration. "Talk to me, Martinez. What do you see?" His voice was barely a whisper, but Sarah heard the trust in it. He was asking for her assessment because he valued her judgment, not because she was new to the team. "Sir, they've doubled the perimeter guards and changed the positions to create overlapping fields of fire," Sarah whispered back. "Anyone approaching the main building using our planned route would be caught in a crossfire from at least 3 positions. But there's something else." She pointed toward the eastern side of the compound. "Look at the guard rotation there. They're leaving a 30-second window every 6 minutes when that sector is only covered by 1 man." Jackson studied the area she indicated. The eastern approach was steeper and more exposed than their planned route, requiring someone to climb across rocky terrain under moonlight. If a guard spotted movement during the ascent, the entire team would be compromised. But if someone could reach that position undetected, they could neutralize the guard and create an entry point that bypassed the main defensive setup. "That's a suicide run," whispered Rodriguez, the team's senior enlisted member. "Whoever goes up there is completely exposed for at least 4 minutes. One mistake and they're dead, plus we lose surprise for the mission." The other team members nodded grimly. They all understood the tactical situation. Sarah studied the terrain again, running calculations in her mind. Her smaller size and lighter weight would be advantages on the rocky approach. She had excelled at climbing during training, and her cardiovascular fitness would help her move quickly enough to minimize exposure time. Most importantly, she had spotted the opportunity, which meant she understood the timing better than anyone else. "I can make that climb," she said quietly. "My weight distribution will be better on those rocks, and I've practiced this type of approach. Give me 8 minutes and I'll have that guard down and the sector clear." She looked at each team member in turn. "Trust me." Jackson weighed the options quickly. Aborting the mission would mean losing a rare opportunity to capture a high-value target. Proceeding with the original plan would likely result in casualties. Sarah's alternative was dangerous, but it offered the best chance of mission success. He had seen her perform under pressure during training. Now it was time to see if she could handle real combat. "Do it," he decided. "Rodriguez, move the team to overwatch position. Everyone else, cover Martinez and be ready to provide suppressing fire if things go wrong. Martinez, you have 8 minutes to get in position. After that, we proceed with or without you." It was a hard deadline that reflected the reality of military operations. Sarah checked her equipment one final time. Her suppressed pistol was secure in its holster. Her knife was sharp and properly positioned. Her communications gear was working perfectly. She had memorized the guard rotation timing and knew exactly where she needed to be. Taking a deep breath, she began her ascent. The first part of the climb was the most dangerous. She had to cross open ground for 30 yards before reaching the rocky slope. Sarah moved with the fluid grace of someone who had spent countless hours practicing stealth movement. She used shadows and terrain features to break up her silhouette, pausing whenever she sensed potential observation. Reaching the base of the rocky slope, she began climbing. The stones were loose in places, threatening to create noise that would alert the guards. Sarah tested each handhold and foothold carefully, distributing her weight to avoid dislodging rocks. Her training had taught her to climb with her entire body, not just her arms, conserving energy for what might be a long night. Halfway up the slope, Sarah heard voices from the compound. 2 guards were talking in a language she didn't recognize, but their tone suggested casual conversation rather than alarm. She froze against the rocks, becoming part of the landscape until the voices faded. Every second counted, but moving too quickly would guarantee detection. The final approach to the guard position required crossing a small open area. Sarah waited for the guard rotation she had observed, counting seconds in her mind. When the moment came, she moved like a shadow across the exposed ground. The lone guard was looking in the opposite direction, following his prescribed patrol pattern. Sarah approached from behind, her knife ready. Military rules of engagement were clear about when lethal force was authorized, and this situation qualified completely. The guard represented a direct threat to her team and the mission. She moved with precision born from endless training repetitions. The guard never knew what happened. One moment he was walking his patrol route, the next he was unconscious on the ground. Sarah had opted for a non-lethal takedown when she realized the man was very young, probably a local militia member rather than a hardened terrorist. She secured him quickly with zip ties and moved him out of sight. "Sector clear," she whispered into her radio. "Eastern approach is open." The relief in her teammates' voices was obvious as they confirmed her transmission. She had successfully opened a new route into the compound, but the most dangerous part of the mission was still ahead. The team moved quickly to her position, carrying the specialized equipment needed for the main objective. Sarah's successful climb had bought them surprise and tactical advantage, but time was running short. Other guards would notice the missing sentry soon, and the opportunity would disappear. Lieutenant Commander Jackson reached her position first, giving her a quick nod of approval. "Good work. Now we finish this." The team assembled rapidly, each member knowing their role in the building assault. Sarah would be part of the entry team, finally, getting the chance to prove herself in direct combat. The target building was a two-story structure with multiple rooms and several possible hiding places for their objective. Intelligence suggested the terrorist leader was on the second floor, but they had to assume he might be anywhere in the building. The team would clear each room systematically, following procedures drilled countless times in training. Sarah's role was to cover the left side of the entry team while Rodriguez covered the right. Jackson would take point, with two other team members providing rear security. They had practiced this formation hundreds of times, but real combat always brought unexpected challenges. The entry went perfectly. The team flowed through the building like water, each member covering their assigned sectors and communicating through hand signals. They encountered 3 guards on the first floor, neutralizing them quickly and quietly. Sarah's training proved its worth as she reacted instinctively to threats and opportunities. On the second floor, they found their target. The terrorist leader was exactly where intelligence had predicted, in a fortified room with 2 bodyguards. The subsequent firefight lasted only seconds, but those seconds tested every aspect of Sarah's training and mental preparation. When the shooting started, Sarah's mind went into a state of focused calm that her instructors had taught her to achieve. Time seemed to slow down as she identified threats and responded with precise, controlled fire. Her weapon handling was flawless, her positioning was perfect, and her communication with teammates was clear and timely. The terrorist leader surrendered when he realized his situation was hopeless. The bodyguards were down, his escape routes were blocked, and he faced a team of elite American warriors who had infiltrated his supposedly secure compound. Sarah maintained her weapon on him while other team members secured the scene. But, as they prepared to extract their prisoner, new complications arose. Radio communications revealed that the local militia had been alerted to the American presence. Vehicles were approaching the compound from multiple directions, and the original extraction plan was compromised. The team needed to reach an alternate landing zone several miles away, while carrying a prisoner and avoiding pursuit. Sarah's leadership skills emerged during the challenging extraction. When the team's planned route was blocked by militia forces, she suggested an alternative path through difficult terrain that would be harder for vehicles to follow. Her navigation skills, honed through years of training and natural aptitude, proved crucial. The team moved through the darkness with their prisoner, staying ahead of pursuing forces through superior training and Sarah's route selection. They covered miles of mountainous terrain while maintaining security and ensuring their captive couldn't escape or signal for help. The physical demands were enormous, but Sarah kept pace with her teammates throughout the grueling movement. At one point during the extraction, the team was nearly surrounded by militia forces. Sarah spotted the threat first, alerting the others and suggesting a tactical response that allowed them to break contact without casualties. Her situational awareness and quick thinking under pressure impressed even the most experienced team members. The extraction helicopter finally appeared at the alternate landing zone, guided by the team's precise navigation. As they loaded their prisoner and prepared to depart, Sarah felt a mixture of exhaustion and satisfaction. She had completed her first combat mission as a SEAL, proving her capabilities under the most demanding conditions. During the flight back to base, Lieutenant Commander Jackson spoke to her over the helicopter's intercom system. "Outstanding work tonight, Martinez. You saved the mission with that climb, and your performance throughout was textbook. Welcome to the team." The other members nodded their agreement, and Sarah knew she had finally earned their complete acceptance. The debriefing sessions that followed the mission revealed the full scope of what they had accomplished. The captured terrorist leader provided intelligence that led to the disruption of multiple planned attacks. The mission was considered a complete success, with no American casualties and minimal collateral damage. Sarah's contributions were specifically noted in the official reports. But the real test came in the days and weeks following the mission. Military critics and media commentators began questioning whether Sarah had really performed as reported, or whether the official accounts were exaggerated to support the political narrative about women in combat. Some suggested that her teammates had carried extra weight to compensate for her presence. The speculation and doubt hurt more than Sarah had expected. She had proven herself in the most demanding circumstances possible, but some people would never accept that a woman could excel as a SEAL. Her teammates were frustrated by the questioning of their integrity and professionalism. They had witnessed her performance firsthand and knew the truth. The controversy reached its peak when a retired military officer went on national television to argue that women in special operations units created unnecessary risks for everyone involved. He claimed that military leaders were under political pressure to declare the integration program successful, regardless of actual performance. His comments were picked up by news outlets and spread widely on social media. Sarah wanted to respond to the criticism directly, but military regulations prevented her from speaking publicly about classified operations. She had to watch while her achievements were questioned and her character was attacked by people who had never served in combat themselves. The frustration was overwhelming at times. Her teammates, however, were not bound by the same restrictions when it came to defending their unit's performance. Rodriguez spoke to a military newspaper, stating clearly that Sarah had earned her place on the team through competence and courage. "She's not our female SEAL," he said. "She's our teammate who happens to be female. There's a big difference." Lieutenant Commander Jackson also defended Sarah's performance in official channels, providing detailed testimony to senior military leaders about her contributions to the mission's success. His reputation for honesty and high standards carried weight with decision-makers who were evaluating the Women in SALS program. As the controversy continued, Sarah focused on preparing for her next mission. The team had been assigned to a counter-terrorism operation in a different region, requiring new intelligence study and tactical preparation. She threw herself into the work, determined to continue proving her worth through performance rather than arguments. The second mission would be even more challenging than the first. Intelligence indicated that they would face a larger enemy force with better equipment and training. The target was another high-value individual, but this one was protected by professional soldiers rather than militia members. The margin for error would be much smaller. Sarah's role in the mission planning process had evolved significantly since her first operation. Her teammates now sought her input on tactical decisions and route selection. Her fresh perspective and attention to detail had proven valuable, and Jackson included her in all strategic discussions. She was becoming a full partner in the team's operations. But even as she prepared for new challenges, Sarah knew that her career as a SEAL would always involve more scrutiny than her male counterparts faced. Every mission would be analyzed for evidence that women could or couldn't handle the demands of elite combat units. The pressure was constant and intense. She had learned to use that pressure as motivation rather than allowing it to become a burden. Each successful mission strengthened the case for women in special operations. Each demonstration of competence under fire opened doors for the women who would follow her path. The responsibility was enormous, but so was the opportunity. As the team prepared to deploy for their second mission together, Sarah reflected on how much had changed since her first day in BUD/S training. She had gone from being an experiment to being a valued team member. Her gender was no longer the most important thing about her professional identity. But she also understood that her journey was just beginning. The military and American society were still adjusting to the idea of women in elite combat roles. There would be more challenges ahead, more critics to face, and more opportunities to prove that merit rather than gender should determine who serves in special operations units. The helicopter that would take them to their next mission was being prepared on the flight line. Sarah checked her equipment one final time and prepared mentally for whatever challenges lay ahead. She had earned her place among America's most elite warriors, but keeping that place would require continued excellence under pressure. Her father had taught her that serving one's country was both a privilege and a responsibility. She had embraced both aspects of that lesson, and she was ready to face whatever came next. The critics could question her capabilities all they wanted, but her performance would speak louder than their words. The mission ahead would provide another opportunity to demonstrate that women could excel in any military role for which they were qualified. Sarah was determined to make the most of that opportunity, both for herself and for all the women who would follow in her path. The second mission briefing took place in a secure facility where maps covered every wall and intelligence photos were spread across multiple tables. The target was Hassan al-Rashid, a terrorist financier who had been funding attacks across 3 countries. Unlike their previous target, al-Rashid was protected by former military personnel who understood American tactics and capabilities. Sarah studied the intelligence materials with intense focus. The target compound was larger and more sophisticated than anything they had faced before. Multiple buildings, underground tunnels, advanced surveillance systems, and at least 40 trained guards created a security challenge that would test every aspect of their training and experience. Lieutenant Commander Jackson addressed the team as they gathered around the central planning table. "This one's different," he began. "We're not dealing with militia members or local thugs. These guards are professionals with military training. Some are former special forces from various countries. They know how we operate, and they've prepared accordingly." The tactical challenges were enormous. Traditional approach routes were covered by overlapping fields of fire from fortified positions. The buildings were designed to channel attackers into kill zones where defenders held every advantage. Multiple escape routes meant that even if they breached the compound, their target could disappear into a network of tunnels and safe houses. Rodriguez pointed to aerial photographs showing the compound's layout. "Intelligence says al-Rashid moves between 3 different buildings on an irregular schedule. We could breach the wrong building and find nothing but empty rooms. Or we could breach the right building and discover he's already moved through the tunnels." Sarah noticed something in the photos that others had missed. "Look at the power lines and communication cables," she said, tracing routes with her finger. "They're all centralized through this one building here. If we could cut power and communications simultaneously, we'd eliminate their coordination and surveillance advantages." Jackson studied her observation carefully. The building she had identified was smaller than the main structures but heavily defended. It would be extremely difficult to approach without detection. But if they could neutralize it, the entire compound's defensive system would be compromised. "That's the key," Jackson agreed. "But getting to that building requires crossing 200 yards of open ground under observation from multiple guard towers. It's a death trap for anyone who tries to approach directly." The team fell silent as they considered the implications. Sarah had been thinking about the problem since first seeing the compound layout. What if we don't approach directly? What if we create multiple distractions while one person goes for the power station? The guards can't watch everywhere at once if they're dealing with threats from different directions. The plan that emerged from their discussion was complex and dangerous. The team would split into 3 elements, each creating diversions at different points around the compound perimeter. While the guards responded to these threats, Sarah would infiltrate the power station and disable the electrical and communication systems. Once those systems were down, the entire team would converge on al-Rashid's most likely location. The plan relied heavily on precise timing and Sarah's ability to move undetected through the most heavily defended part of the compound. If she was discovered before reaching the power station, the mission would fail and casualties would be inevitable. But, if she succeeded, they would have their best chance of capturing al-Rashid alive. Training for the mission required weeks of preparation. The team practiced the coordinated assault until every movement was automatic. Sarah rehearsed her infiltration route countless times, using mock-ups and computer simulations to perfect her approach. The margin for error was essentially zero. During one training exercise, everything went wrong. Equipment malfunctioned, timing was off, and the mock assault turned into chaos. Sarah found herself trapped in the power station simulation while enemy forces converged on her position. Instead of panicking, she adapted quickly, finding an alternative escape route and completing her objectives despite the changed circumstances. "That's why we train," Jackson told the team during the debrief. "Murphy's Law applies to every operation. Things will go wrong, and we have to be ready to adapt." Sarah's performance during the failed exercise had impressed everyone. Her ability to think clearly under extreme pressure was becoming one of her defining characteristics. Media attention around women in special operations had quieted somewhat, but Sarah knew that this mission would be scrutinized just as intensely as her first. Military leaders were still evaluating the integration program, and every operation provided data points for their assessments. Success would strengthen the program, failure could end it. The night before deployment, Sarah called her father for the first time in months. Military security requirements limited what she could tell him, but he understood that she was about to face another significant challenge. "You've got this, kiddo," he said, using her childhood nickname. "Trust your training and trust your team." The insertion for the second mission took place during a moonless night that provided maximum concealment. The team approached the compound using a route that took them through rough terrain but avoided the most heavily patrolled areas. Sarah's navigation skills proved crucial as they moved through unfamiliar territory in complete darkness. Reaching their positions around the compound perimeter required several hours of careful movement. Each team member had to reach their assigned location without alerting the guards or triggering any surveillance systems. Sarah's position was the most dangerous, requiring her to get within 50 yards of the power station before beginning her infiltration. As dawn approached, the team was in position. Sarah lay concealed behind a rocky outcrop, studying the power station through her scope. 2 guards patrolled the area on a regular schedule, while a third remained in a fixed position near the building's entrance. She would have to neutralize all 3 without raising an alarm. The diversionary attacks began precisely at sunrise. Rodriguez's element created an explosion on the compound's eastern side, drawing guards away from other sectors. Simultaneously, another team member began sniper fire from the north, forcing defenders to take cover and respond to multiple threats. The guards around the power station rushed toward the sounds of combat. Sarah moved immediately, covering the open ground in a low sprint that took her to the building's rear entrance. The lock was sophisticated but not beyond her training. Within 30 seconds, she was inside the power station, surrounded by humming electrical equipment and communication gear. The technical sabotage she had trained for went smoothly. Sarah located the main power distribution panel and the primary communication hub, disabling both with charges that would create maximum disruption with minimal explosive signature. The compound's lights went out just as she finished setting the devices. But, as she prepared to leave the building, Sarah heard footsteps approaching. Someone had noticed the power failure and was coming to investigate. She had seconds to find concealment before being discovered. The building's interior was cramped and offered few hiding places. Sarah pressed herself against a support beam as the door opened and a flashlight beam swept the room. A guard called out in Arabic, probably asking if anyone was there. She controlled her breathing and remained perfectly still, knowing that any movement would give away her position. The guard stepped into the room, his weapon ready. The confrontation was brief and decisive. When the guard's flashlight beam found her, Sarah reacted with the speed and precision her training had developed. The guard went down silently, but Sarah knew that others would come looking when he failed to report. Her escape window was closing rapidly. Racing from the power station, Sarah reached her extraction point just as the main assault began. With power and communications down, the compound's defenders were operating blind and confused. The team moved through their objectives with devastating efficiency, clearing buildings and pursuing their target through the tunnel system. Al-Rashid was captured in his command bunker, surrounded by computer equipment and financial records that would prove invaluable for future operations. The entire assault took less than 20 minutes from start to finish, demonstrating the effectiveness of their planning and Sarah's crucial contribution to the mission's success. The extraction was more challenging than their previous operation. Al-Rashid's organization had backup systems and external support that began responding as soon as the compound went dark. The team faced pursuit from multiple directions as they moved toward their helicopter landing zone. During the extraction movement, the team was ambushed by a rapid response force that had been waiting in reserve. Sarah's quick thinking again proved crucial as she identified an escape route through terrain that vehicles couldn't follow. Her physical fitness allowed her to maintain the demanding pace while helping to guard their prisoner. The firefight that developed during the extraction tested every aspect of Sarah's combat training. Moving through difficult terrain while under fire, she maintained effective communication with her teammates and provided accurate covering fire when needed. Her weapon handling remained steady despite the stress and physical demands of the situation. When one teammate was wounded during the firefight, Sarah helped provide medical aid while maintaining security around their position. Her medical training, combined with her ability to multitask under pressure, proved invaluable during those critical moments. The wounded team member would later credit her quick response with saving his life. The helicopter extraction was successful, but Sarah knew that this mission would generate even more scrutiny than her first. The tactical complexity and successful outcome would either silence critics or prompt them to claim that luck rather than skill had produced the results. She prepared mentally for both possibilities. The intelligence gathered during the mission led to the disruption of terrorist financial networks across multiple countries. Al-Rashid's computers contained information about funding sources, operational plans, and personnel that intelligence agencies had been seeking for years. The strategic impact of the mission far exceeded its tactical success. During post-mission interviews with senior military leaders, Sarah's performance was consistently praised by her teammates and superiors. Lieutenant Commander Jackson's official report detailed her contributions to mission planning, execution, and extraction. Her technical skills, leadership ability, and combat effectiveness were specifically noted. But the public debate about women in special operations continued. Some critics argued that the missions had been selected specifically to showcase female capabilities, while others claimed that mission reports were exaggerated for political reasons. Sarah found the persistent doubt frustrating but used it as motivation to continue excelling. 6 months after her second mission, Sarah received news that would change her career trajectory. The Navy was expanding the Women in SALS program, and she was being assigned to help train the next group of female candidates. Her combat experience and proven performance made her uniquely qualified to prepare other women for the challenges ahead. The training assignment represented both an honor and a challenge. Sarah would be responsible for ensuring that future female SEALs met the same standards she had achieved. Any failures in the training program would reflect on her leadership and potentially damage the broader integration effort. Her first group of trainees included women from various military backgrounds. Some were experienced Navy personnel seeking to join special operations, while others came from other service branches or different specialties. All were highly qualified, but Sarah knew that qualification and success were different things. Training the next generation of female SEALs required Sarah to synthesize everything she had learned from her own experiences. She emphasized physical fitness, mental toughness, and teamwork skills while also preparing the trainees for the unique pressures they would face as pioneers in a traditionally male field. The media attention surrounding the expanded training program was intense. Sarah found herself fielding questions from reporters and participating in official interviews designed to showcase the military's commitment to integration. She tried to focus attention on the qualifications and performance of all SEALs rather than gender-specific issues. One of her trainees, Lieutenant Jennifer Walsh, particularly impressed Sarah with her determination and natural leadership ability. Walsh had overcome significant obstacles to reach SEAL training, and her attitude reminded Sarah of her own journey. Mentoring Walsh and other promising candidates became one of the most rewarding aspects of Sarah's new assignment. As the expanded training program progressed, Sarah reflected on how much had changed since her first day in BUD/S. Women in special operations were no longer an experiment but an established part of military capability. The debate continued, but performance was gradually replacing politics as the primary measure of success. The graduation ceremony for Sarah's first training class marked a historic milestone. 12 women completed the program successfully, joining Sarah as fully qualified SEALs. The ceremony attracted national media attention and praise from military leaders who had initially been skeptical about women in elite combat units. During her speech at the graduation ceremony, Sarah reflected on the journey that had brought them all to that moment. "We're not here because we're women," she told the graduates and assembled audience. "We're here because we're warriors who happen to be women. Our gender doesn't define our capabilities, and our capabilities don't need to be justified by our gender." The speech resonated with military personnel and civilians who had followed the integration program's progress. Sarah's words captured the essence of what she and her fellow female SEALs had achieved, proving that merit rather than gender should determine who serves in elite military units. Following the graduation ceremony, Sarah received orders for a new assignment that would take her career in an unexpected direction. She was being promoted and assigned to help develop training standards for special operations forces across all military branches. Her combat experience and training expertise made her uniquely qualified for the role. The new assignment represented both recognition of her achievements and an opportunity to influence the future of special operations training. Sarah would be working with the most experienced military leaders in the country, helping to ensure that all special operations personnel received the best possible preparation for their missions. As she prepared for her new role, Sarah thought about the young girl who had spent hours reading military history books by flashlight. That girl had dreamed of serving her country at the highest level, but she probably never imagined the path that dream would take. The journey had been longer and more challenging than expected, but also more rewarding. Sarah's story had become larger than just her personal achievement. She had helped prove that women could excel in any military role for which they were qualified. Her success had opened doors for countless other women and changed the conversation about gender roles in military service. But, perhaps most importantly, Sarah had earned her place as a respected member of the special operations community. Her gender was no longer the most significant thing about her professional identity. She was simply an outstanding SEAL who happened to be a woman, and that distinction made all the difference. Years later, when young women asked Sarah for advice about pursuing careers in special operations, she always told them the same thing: train harder than everyone else, perform better than everyone expects, and never let anyone convince you that your dreams are impossible. The only limitations that matter are the ones you place on yourself. Her journey from excluded outsider to elite warrior and respected leader demonstrated the truth of that advice. Sarah Martinez had proven that determination, preparation, and courage could overcome any obstacle. Her legacy would inspire future generations of women to pursue their own impossible dreams. The military had been forever changed by women like Sarah who refused to accept limitations based on gender rather than capability. The integration of women into special operations represented progress toward a military that valued merit above all other considerations. Sarah's story was just the beginning of that larger transformation. Standing in her new office, surrounded by awards and commendations that recognized her contributions to military service, Sarah felt proud of what she had accomplished. But she also felt excited about the challenges ahead. There was still work to do, still barriers to break down, and still young people to inspire. They had thought she was finished before she ever really began. Critics had predicted her failure from the moment she entered SEAL training. But Sarah had responded in the only way that mattered, with excellence under pressure, courage in the face of doubt, and unwavering commitment to serving her country at the highest level. Her response had been louder than any words and more convincing than any argument. Through her actions, Sarah Martinez had proven that the only thing that should matter in military service is the ability to complete the mission and bring everyone home safely. Gender was irrelevant when lives were on the line. The Navy SEAL who had once been told she couldn't succeed had instead changed the entire military. Her instant response to doubt had been a career of distinction that would inspire warriors for generations to come. Sarah's story proved that sometimes the best response to those who think you're finished is to show them you're just getting started.